Hey everyone, welcome to the Happily Ever After 40 podcast. I am going to be the host of this new podcast series. I am Tamika Michelle, and it is very apropos that we are doing this stream of my husband, Darryl. Hey, Darryl. And our story, our Happily Ever After 40 story, our journey, how we both got to where we are. We both got married for the first time over the age of 40. So, the purpose of this podcast is to encourage other people, especially professional, successful, high achieving men and women who are having issues in the dating scene and dating arena. Just want to give you hope, people who are approaching 40 or 40 and over, not to give up, not to settle. Our journey to the altar was many, many years. It was actually 14 years after we initially met. We have dated other people. We've been in other relationships. So it was a very, very interesting journey. So on Valentine's Day, so one happy Valentine's Day, everyone. If you're single, if you're in a relationship, it's been a great day over here in our house of 6 now. So it's been a great day full of love. But just want to tell our story again as encouragement, not to give up, not to give up on love. I know, especially for a lot of women, professional women, when you are kind of doing your thing, you're a boss during the day. You don't have time to play a lot of quote unquote games and all of that. You just want, to find someone that you are compatible with, who is on the same level as you, and just kind of move on. But sometimes it's just not, most of the times, usually just not that simple and easy. So if you are joining us live, feel free to comment or ask us questions in the chat. Thank you. And I can't see your name unless you actually put your name in there. So thank you. Congratulations. So excited for you guys. Thank you for that. But basically, we're going to tell my story, which would be probably the most accurate part of this story. And then Darryl will also tell his story as well. So like I said, first of all, we met, I was about 25, actually, when we originally met. We met in 2003, and my daughter was 1 at the time. And when we met, interestingly enough, this is going to show my age. We actually met online. And Darryl, for me, he was the first person I actually met in person from connecting with online. And we met on, what do we meet on? What platform do we meet on?
Black Planet.
Black Planet. So I don't even know if Black Planet still exists, but that's where we met. So he definitely was the first person I met. He was not the last over the years, and I was not his first or the last that he met online. But again, yeah, a really interesting story. So I was about 25. My daughter was 1, and I literally was moving to Louisiana to finish law school. To anybody out there who went to SULC, shout out to them, Southern University Law Center. I was going to move there, and so we met online. We met at a restaurant, Applebee's, out here in Georgia, and he looked like the same person that was online. And we had a really, really good time. So for me, I knew at that point I was not ready for a relationship. I knew I was moving out of state, but I always knew I was coming back to Georgia. So for me, it was just someone that I would meet when I came back. We'd go out, we hang out, we talk, and all of that. So that was my perception. Thought he was a cool guy, and I just was like, okay, well, we can definitely hang out when I come back. So, but Darryl had a different take on our meeting. So Darryl, tell everyone what you thought when we first met and how we met.
Well, everything was basically accurate. I mean, we first met in 2003, and you told me right off the bat that you were leaving in about 2 weeks. So I thought, okay, well, she seems pretty cool. She's attractive. We can meet, but she doesn't go anywhere because she's leaving. So we met up and we had a good time. And I thought, man, it's a shame she's leaving. Oh well. So we met, we had a good time. I moved on, she left, and that was where I thought everything was going to end. But she did come back and contacted me, so we met up some more times. But initially, I thought, well, I'm gonna just meet her once. But she seems like a cool person, so.
Right. So yeah, we definitely hit it off. But again, I wasn't looking for anything serious then. So I was totally okay with just, kind of intermittently dating and talking. So fast forward a couple years later, I graduated law school, passed the bar in 2006. So, we were still kind of connecting. I think I was 29 at the time. Um, and I remember having my law firm opening and I invited him out. And I think his parents were like in the process of moving to Georgia. I'm not sure if they moved or not, but invited them out to the law firm opening. So we were still like pretty cool. Now I have to say at that point when I was in Georgia, and we talked often, like on the phone, and we would talk for a while, almost like every night, several nights a week. We would go out. And I thought in my mind, like I thought like I was the only one. I was like, I'm it now. Like I'm ready. Stop it.
What?
And I really thought in my head, like I was the only one that he was dating. Cause like now he knew like I was here. So like whatever else he had going on throughout the previous years, he was going to let that go. Cause I just thought I was like that chick. So, so hello, father of my child. Okay. My children.
Yeah.
So I kind of, thought that, I mean, I still was kind of, I guess dating other people here and there if I met someone. And then I was turning 30 at the end of that year. And so I wasn't talking to anyone specifically. And I remember Darryl and I were speaking on the phone and he was like, oh, well, your birthday's coming up, maybe we can, go out to dinner and celebrate. And I was like, okay, cool. So in my mind, that was like a date. We were going to go out and we were just going to figure out the details and the time and all that like later on. So I think the day that I was turning 30, earlier that day, Darryl called me and he was like, oh, we're going to take a rain check. And I don't remember if he said, because Darryl's a programmer. So I don't remember if he said, I am working on a program and got caught up, or he could have said, my father's coming in from out of town. I need to pick him up from the airport. One of them. But regardless, I was like, this is really, really last minute. And this is like my 30th birthday. And I was like pissed. Like, even though we weren't like exclusively dating or anything, I was upset. So I was like, okay, cool, whatever. I remember I went to church that night. It was a Wednesday night. And then I politely went to a club and had a ball that night because it was too late for me to make any plans with anyone else. So I just kind of like did it. And I, still had a good time. But that was pretty much the last time we spoke for a minute because I felt like he had stood me up and that was not acceptable. So, Darryl, you go ahead and tell your side of that on my 30th birthday. You remember?
I don't.
Okay. You don't remember at all?
I don't remember. I am relatively certain I didn't tell you I was programming. I mean, my equipment doesn't go anywhere, so I can program anytime I want.
Mm-hmm.
As far as my father coming into town, I would have known that beforehand. Like that would
Okay.
have been established months before because my father was overly anal about doing things well in advance. So I would have known when he was coming back before I asked you to do anything. Like
Okay.
there's no well he just was coming back and I didn't know he was out of town.
Okay.
So I'm not sure about that.
So
Those
that's what happened. So we ended up not going out that night. And then so I was a little irritated. And so I kind of stopped speaking to Darryl for the moment. And then a couple months later, I actually ended up getting involved in another relationship that was, for anyone that knows, it was a long-term relationship. It was a 10-year on and off, as we call now, a situationship. And so I say it was on again and off again because some of the off agains, I did contact Darryl. I can say in our initial conversations, I always thought Darryl, he seemed to be like a really good guy, upstanding guy. He definitely had, in my mind, he had dating and husband potential. So, but when I was in my relationship earlier on, I didn't communicate with him. But when there was an off time, I did contact him a couple times, and we would speak as if no time had passed and everything. Like we just kind of vibed and we got along really really well for the most part. So that was like that really throughout my 30s until the end of my 30s. And so I'll kind of stop and pause there, Darryl. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, if that was kind of accurate.
No, that was pretty accurate. We would do well when we would go out, and then we would start talking, and then he'd stop taking my calls, and we wouldn't talk.
You don't have
Am
to
I
say it.
wrong?
You don't have to say it like that.
Okay. How should it be said?
Okay, so I'll say this. We're okay. I did. So a lot of times I did go back to my previous relationship. So that's like another subject to break down in another episode. But that did happen. But I do remember around, I think I was around 35. Um, yeah, because I can remember where I was at the point in my life. And we did go out. I remember we went to a basketball game, went to a Hawks game downtown. Then we went out to dinner afterwards. And we had a specific question or conversation. I remember asking you, how you felt, like, did you want kids? Because at that time you didn't have any kids. And of course I had my daughter at the time. And you said, oh yeah, I'd like to have kids. And then I asked him about marriage, like, what is your stance on marriage? And his response was more than once, well, I'm not looking to get married right now, but I'm not against it either. So I remember one of the last times we had that conversation, I was kind of like, okay, well, he's not there. So let me move on. And my moving on meant going back to the same stupid relationship that I was in previously. So, and that happened, I think that happened twice. We went out again some years later, and the same thing kind of happened. It was like 4 years later, and we connected again. And I asked him, okay, how do you feel about kids and marriage now? And your response was what?
I don't remember exactly now. It was along those lines. I mean, pretty much about the same. I don't remember exactly what I said, but
But it was that he's pretty consistent. So he pretty much said the same thing. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I apparently am not making an impact on this man. Like, I am not moving the needle at all. So then I disappeared again, and then got back into the same crazy situationship that I was in for the previous how many years. Finally, got done at 39. I was done with that relationship, but it was definitely a process. Again, another conversation for another episode. But the summer of 2016, I was dating again, and I just happened to be out. I was working. I was in a shopping plaza in between one of my meetings, and Darryl haphazardly walked into the middle of the parking lot, and he almost got hit by my car. And so I screeched, and I stop it. And I would slam on the brakes, and I stopped, and I turned my head, and I was like, Darryl? And it was him. And so, like, immediately we just kind of we gave each other a hug and kind of reconnected. By then it had been a couple years since we had spoken at that point. So at that point we exchanged numbers, and we stayed in contact for the most part. But I could sense that Darryl was really hesitant and reserved in his dealings with me. And I guess because of the prior years, what had happened. So you just tell me, or you can tell everyone how you interpreted that same thing or that same situation. What happened?
so well, okay. So I remember I was with my parents, and we had stopped at Subway to get. So I went in, I got subs, I walk out, somebody's screeching around the corner like they're just robbed a bank. Almost hits me. Pretty much, I think it might have clipped the end of my heel, but at any rate, she saw me. She called me. I said, "What?" Oh, and I saw it was her. I thought, "Oh, okay." Hadn't talked to her in a while. I guess it had been years at that point. So we did reconnect then, and then we would talk. And yeah, I did have it in the back of my mind. Now, at some point, she's just not going to return the call. So I thought, okay, well, we'll talk, but know that at some point we're not going to be talking, and I may not know when that is. So I did have that in the back of my head.
Okay. And I actually, and I felt that as well. But at the same time, I was like, okay, the only way I can kind of get over that hump, or him getting a little bit more comfortable with me, is just to kind of take my time, which was fine, because I totally at that point was not looking for a relationship because I had just gotten out of one, and I was still healing. And so we kind of went out every once in a while. Um, and then there was a moment. I think your cousin was coming into town, and
Yeah.
you had asked me a question. Tell everyone what happened in that situation.
Oh well, I had asked if you had any places we could go. I'm not a huge, go out like host like that takes people around. I didn't mind doing it, but I wasn't one that went around a lot. So I thought, well, did you have any place that I could perhaps take her? We could go. And she said she didn't, and I thought, oh, okay. So I was gonna ask somebody else, another female friend that I had. I was gonna ask her, but Tamika ended up suggesting somewhere, so I never did ask anyone else. But I did have on my at that point we were talking, we were getting along, but it was still in the back of my head at some point she's gonna be gone. So
Okay.
so I was still going out with people.
Okay. So previous to us reconnecting that summer, what was your situation as far as dating and relationship and seeing other people throughout that period of time, which I was basically in a relationship on and off?
I was dating, I wasn't in a relationship, I was seeing other people. Any other questions?
I hate you. Okay, no, not for nothing. Were you not like dating someone for like several years?
Oh yeah, I was, but I was dating other people too.
Okay, so I just want to know, like, how do you like date someone? Like, how is it perceived? How do you date someone for like 2 years and it not be a relationship? Like, what is that conversation? Was she not asking you like for a relationship, or was it not happening, or like where were you? Were you not on the same page? What was going on with that? Because that's a long time just to be dating someone and to not be in a relationship.
We were dating on and off. We weren't necessarily. We would go out pretty consistently, but I was dating other people. Like there was no relationship if I'm dating other people, right? I'm assuming.
Well,
There-
no, but that's a long time to deal with someone, to date someone, and not be in a relationship. Like you say, 2 years. I don't know if it was 2 years or how long it was,
I
but
wasn't keeping track. But okay, it was a couple
okay,
of
it was a couple years.
something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so okay, why? Okay, talking to someone for like 2 years, you were dating other people. Why weren't you specifically in a relationship in that with that particular person?
Why wasn't I? I wasn't. There was no.
Was the interest not there? Were you waiting for her to bring
Well,
it up, or what?
let's say that again.
I said, was the interest not there? Or were you waiting for her to bring the subject up?
I wasn't waiting for her to do anything. No, I. There wasn't. It wasn't there. I mean, okay. In my mind, the question is like, why aren't you in a relationship with fill in the blank? The question is not usually why aren't you in a relationship. It's usually why are you? Like,
I'm just
like
saying, 2 years
you
is a
can ask,
long time to be, or I say, you say years. That's a long time to be dating someone and to not like even have the conversation of being in a relationship, which is okay. And I bring it up because that's very frustrating for a lot of women, especially as we're like in our late 30s, 40s, what have you. Like, that's a long time. So I'm just trying to figure out if that conversation even came up on her end as far as being in a relationship, or it just never came up.
no conversation. No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's just interesting to me because after 2 years, I definitely would ask that question. Okay, so let's go back to 2016. Um, I was turning 40 that year, and I decided that I was going to have a big birthday party for my 40th, and so I asked Darryl, I think like in October, maybe early November, if he would be my date for for my 40th birthday. So he was like, yeah, we'd gone out to dinner that evening, and he said, yeah, he would. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I was talking to a couple other people, but they weren't really candidates to. Yes,
I didn't understand me to be your date.
really,
I understood you to be inviting me to your birthday party, which
really.
in my mind did not mean that I was your date.
Okay, so this is the first time that we're having this conversation. No, I specifically remember going to that Mexican restaurant off of Grayson Highway, and afterwards we were in the parking lot, and I was like, "Hey, would you like to accompany me to my birthday party?" And you were
Yeah,
like, "Yes."
I
Okay,
didn't think that as me meaning your date. Maybe that's what it means to everybody else. I
okay.
didn't get that.
Well, that will explain a lot about what I'm about to say because we almost weren't again. So, okay, so he said yes. I heard yes. I said accompany. I don't know what. Okay, you guys let me know in the comments. I asked him, "Would you accompany me to my birthday party?" He says yes. Do you all see that as an invitation, or just an invitation to be my date, or invitation just to come to the party? Just write that in the chat just so I know, because we clearly we have not had this discussion before. But anyway, so the night of my party, and I knew his cousin was in town, and also the strange thing was is that um his mom was throwing a birthday party for his dad. His dad's birthday is actually in April, but the birthday party was in December. So, and I knew when it was because he was over my house like a week or so before that, and he asked. I printed out the invitations for him. I made copies of them, so I was like, "Oh, this is the same day as my party," and he was like, "Yeah, but it's earlier than a day, and I should still be at your party." Do you remember that?
I do.
Okay, so um, that evening, I'm like headed to the place where we're having my party. It's probably like a couple hours early, so I can go ahead and get ready and greet everyone and all of that. And then I called him on my way because I just assumed, okay, I knew he was doing something with his parents. He's not going to come and pick me up. Okay, fine, got that. So we get there. Oh, so I get there, and then I'm driving. First, he's like, well, I'll be there. It only takes like 27 minutes or whatever to get there. So I'll be there. And I was like, okay, fine. So a little while later, as people are starting to come in to my birthday party, the function, Darryl sends me a text that says, "I'm going to be late. I don't know how long." And so I was absolutely livid. Like, I was like hot. I was like, okay, I'm supposed to, like, he's supposed to be here as my date. Like, that's how it was supposed to be. And the only reason I didn't respond back, well, forget it, was because I got so busy, people started coming in. So if I would have sent that text to you, if I would have said forget it, what would have happened? Would you have pushed to come, or would you have just let it go?
Well, I would have responded. The reason I said I didn't know was because my cousin was taking a shower and I was waiting for her. So I couldn't say how long it takes her to get ready.
Mm-hmm.
Because her getting ready and me, I was ready, but she wasn't ready. So then I'm waiting for her, and she jumped in the shower right before I sent the text. So I'm like, okay, she's gonna jump in the shower, then she's got to put on makeup and do whatever it is y'all do, and she's starting to do that now. So I had no idea how long that was gonna take. And
Okay.
then my father's birthday party ran longer. A bunch of people from church came, and so yeah, I was. It was at that point. It was like, well, I wasn't there. I wasn't going to tell my mom, well, no, I'm leaving my father's party. I'm not going to be here for that. And I'm not leaving my cousin who's visiting from Jamaica. So at that point, I actually did not know how long that was going to take. So, yeah.
And you didn't communicate all that. You were just like,
I
I'm going
didn't
to be like,
communicate all of that. I was actually kind of upset that I was thinking I had told you yes, and then this came up because this came up after you had told me about yours. And it was
mm-hmm.
like, okay, well, and so now I'm waiting, and then the birthday party ran over. So now I'm like, okay, we can go now. Then she said, oh, I have to go to the shower. And I was like, oh, we're going to be real late. So now I'm sitting here waiting, and I can't do anything because I'm ready. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I was, yeah. I would
Okay.
have asked, but I mean, I would have understood, and I might have just. Because I mean, yeah, I thought it was, you know, from your
Okay.
standpoint, obviously, it's just me playing around. So, you know.
Yeah, it's okay. So mind you, I had the incident when I turned 30. Now I'm turning 40. Now this is happening. And so he came, him and his cousin came, and I was kind of like all over the place. So I saw him, acknowledged him, whatever, yada yada yada. But it wasn't as an escort or as a date. And just so you know, in the comments, people have agreed that that was actually me asking you to be my
Well,
date.
I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm just telling you what I thought at the time.
Okay. So anyway, had the birthday party. I'm 40, and I'm like, okay, like now I was like kind of like done again. I was like, okay, like this is like the second time that this has happened. So we kind of like chilled out again, and I think the beginning of the year 2017, you had called, and I was like, you know what, let me answer the phone, and we talked. And things were cool. Again, I wasn't my mind was like kind of like in a different place. So we started talking again, and we started going out to lunch again, and in the evening started dating again. So interestingly enough, I just published an article yesterday, and it was titled "My Last Valentine's Day as a Single at 40 years old." So today, 4 years ago, was the anniversary of me thinking again. This, Daryl actually might have potential for us to get married, to be together, have a relationship, kind of see what's going on. So Daryl kind of asked me last minute, maybe like a day or two before Valentine's Day in 2017, to go out for Valentine's Day. And I wasn't dating anyone at the time. And I was like, okay, I really thought like I was going to be single. Like I was single. I was cool being single. I had processed it in my head. I was like, okay, like I was just kind of like figuring out me and enjoying me and my time. So I wasn't really expecting anything to happen for Valentine's Day. But he did ask, and I was like, okay, cool. Again, I had my daughter, so who was, I don't know, 14 at the time. So last minute, I had my dad come and watch her. We ended up going out to like an early dinner. We went to a restaurant. There was nobody there when we got there. But Daryl and I have always been able, when we speak on the phone, we've always been able just to like talk, or or if we were together, we always had the ability to talk for a really long time, have really good, interesting, in-depth conversations. So the same thing happened when we went out for Valentine's Day. We were there for like several hours, and by the time we left, like we didn't even realize like the room was like packed by the time we left. So when we left and we parted ways that day, I was like, you know what? I think again, Daryl is someone that I can really be with and maybe explore a relationship with. I'm not looking for marriage right now, but definitely potential there. So after that, I asked him like a couple of days later. It was NBA. What was it? All Stars.
All-Star Weekend.
NBA All Stars weekend.
All-Star
Like
Saturday.
that weekend. And
Mhm.
unbeknownst to Daryl, he subconsciously started to fall in love with me that weekend. I invited him over that weekend so we could watch the All Stars, the competitions, dunk competitions, all that. So I'm going to let you tell like what happened on your end that weekend. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember the weekend. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I came over because I think it was basically I was going to watch All Star Weekend. Like that was just what was going to happen. And then you mentioned, well, I can watch it over there, and I thought, oh, okay, because that's usually not my first thought is I can watch All Star Weekend over somebody I'm going out with's house, because most women aren't interested, so including you. But
Mm-hmm.
so we came over, so we're watching All Star Weekend, and one thing I distinctly remember, I have a thing about sweet tea. Like I really like sweet tea. So she made some tea, like from tea packets and everything, and put them in and got it and sweetened it. And I was like, oh, okay. So she's kind of paying attention. Okay, I see. Okay.
I'll give y'all a recipe of that sweet tea afterwards. I put some in there.
so so that was something that stuck out was just that she had paid attention to that. And of course, we're watching All Star Weekend, and she's just not like she used to play in the WNBA or anything. She's not, I'm a typical dude. I watch football, I watch basketball, I watch sports. So so that kind of hit me. And then of course we were talking like the game ended, not the game, the festivities ended 10:45, 11 o'clock, and we were there talking until like 4. The TV was on, we weren't really watching anything, we were just sort of talking, And we kind of both lost track of time. And yeah, it was, I don't have a whole lot of conversations like that where I lose completely track of time, like in life. That tends not to happen. So yeah, that was pretty much how I remember it. You anything you want to throw in?
No, I do want to say, like, the interesting thing. So this is now 2017, and so again, we met in 2003, and the thing that always stood out to me is that we never like ever slept together, like that whole period of time. Which was, to know someone that long is kind of highly unusual, even though we weren't in a relationship. I definitely liked you. And, we had spent like time together and hours together and kind of like to the wee hours in the morning several times, but, never had gone there. So, yeah, I guess a couple weeks later was your birthday. Your birthday's early March. And then, I asked if you were doing anything for your birthday. You said no. I ended up planning your birthday. Was a good birthday. And in that evening, and we kind of got like somewhat intimate. And like we kind of like, we started talking. And then I was like, hey, how do you feel about being in a relationship or something like that, about us being together or being exclusive or something like that? And then Darryl just like, he didn't respond. And I was like, did you hear me? And he was like, yeah, I heard you. And I was like, okay. And so then I was quiet for a minute. Then I was like, are you going to answer me? And you were like, I'm thinking. And I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, well, don't think too long because, I'm really impatient. I really am impatient. But so don't think too long. He was like, okay. And then I was just like my mouth was just like open. Like I just could not like understand or comprehend his response. I was just like, I just had like the bomb birthday for you. Like I did this, I did that. I had a cake and, went to a restaurant with a live band. Like we had a really good time. And I was cute and like everything. And you just didn't respond. What?
You were cute.
Yeah, thank you. So, but it was just really weird. So, like, that was what was going through my mind. And then I'm usually a very confident person, but I will tell you, Darryl shook my confidence that night. Like, I was like, oh, something is like wrong. Something is like, he didn't respond. And I felt like, oh my gosh, he's going to reject me. Like, my heart was like, I say my heart, but my feelings were hurt. So, tell me a little bit, or tell everyone a little bit about what was going on in your head when that happened.
Well, what was going on in my head was I had pretty much been single for, very
47.
long.
47 years.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So I hadn't really been in a formal relationship. It's not something I did for the most part. So so it was more just, I had gotten used to being single and my head was in that space, and then it was like this space, and it was like, well, she is like a phenomenal woman, but I'm me. And it's me and me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't ready for the question. And generally when I'm not ready for a question, I have to think it through. And I had to think it through and go through what I go through in my head.
Okay.
And I hadn't done that at all.
And how long did you think about it?
Couple weeks.
3 weeks. 3 weeks, people. It was insane. It was insane. So yeah, 3 weeks went by. We still kind of talked intermittently. But I refused. I refused to bring it back up, to ask him again, like, hey, do you think about my question? Like, I just refused. And so by beginning of week 3, I was like, you know what? Darryl's cool. I'm done. Like, clearly, like, he's either like he's avoiding the question. He, doesn't want to be in a relationship, doesn't know how to say it. Okay, fine. So I remember we went out one last time for lunch. And I remember I was like, this is going to be basically the last time that we meet because, right, exactly, right, 3 weeks. Because I wrote that in the chat. I had my daughter. And so every time I went out, I would have to make accommodations for her. And I was like, well, I'm not going to keep on making accommodations for my daughter if this is not going anywhere. So basically I was like, at the end of this lunch, this would probably be the last time that Darryl and I speak. And it just so happened. So no, I want you to tell everyone what happened going into that day or around those 3 weeks, like the day that we were supposed to be meeting and what happened, or that night before
Oh,
it happened.
well, this is what happened. I just, since we've been talking, it's like I never made this connection, but the other thing was with my dad's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, my mom's birthday was the day before we were supposed to meet.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to my parents' house for my mom's birthday. So my parents had given me a garage door opener. So I would drive into their garage and then, close the garage. So we're in there meeting for my mom's birthday and the power goes out. So I go outside and the power is out on the entire block. Like somebody has hit something, or the whole community has no power.
Okay,
Turns
let me
out,
interject real quick because you actually called me that night and you were like, "Hey, I think you said the power was out. I don't know if I'll be able to come because I don't know why, because I can't get out of electricity
I couldn't get out of the garage.
or something like that." And I was like, okay, all right. I was like, we'll see. Like, I'm not. I'll see you and wait and see what happens the next day. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so that was, and at that point, I that was not lost on me. That, oh wow, the power went out. That sounds like it had actually gone out, and I actually couldn't get the garage door up. Luckily, I went in and I saw where the instructions were to do the manual release, so I manually released it, opened it up, got my car out, went back, went in, put it back down, re-hooked it up. So, and of course, the power did not come on until like the next day. So, but I did get out. I did get out, and we were able to meet. So, but that actually did happen. I know people here just like, I don't understand why you married this dude. Yeah, you need to get out of this.
I was like, really?
You,
Electricity went out. You gotta come in? Okay, dude.
I got a brother. You need to dump this one.
So anyway, but we had never really, like, throughout those years, Darryl had never really argued. We never argued with one another. Like, we didn't like raise our voices or anything at each other. So I mean, it was never like that situation, which is kind of like, oh, okay. And so yeah, so I was kind of like reserved during that lunch, but at the end, and I had actually processed him out of my mind at that point. But at the end of that day, he was kind of like, yeah, so I thought about what you said. And I'm like, mm-hmm. And he basically was like, well, yeah, I'd like for us to date exclusively. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, and I really was kind of like, that's cool. Because at that point I had processed him out my mind. I was like, he's gonna say no. Like, it doesn't take anybody 3 weeks to decide if they want to be with anyone. It doesn't take anybody 3 weeks to decide if they want to be with me. Like, that's what I thought. Like, that was like a long time. So, and I remember like talking to my sister-in-law during that time period, and she was like, she kind of knew what the history of Darryl and I, what it was, and kind of me going back and forth. And she was like, he should have just like let you wait for like 2 months. So she was like, yeah, I mean, that's normal. She's like, you've taken him through like all these changes. Like, he needs a minute. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not really buying that. But anyway, so yeah, it kind of like it took me a couple minutes or a couple days to kind of like get back on board. And because I remember you called me a couple days later, because I just wasn't like acting like we were in a relationship now. You were like, you did say you want to be in an exclusive relationship, right? And I was like, yeah. But, I was like, my mind just wasn't there. So anyway, after a couple of days, I kind of got back on board and we kind of started dating. Things were cool. One of the first conversations we had was about kids, because now here I am 40. He doesn't have any kids. He's 47. He said he wanted to have kids. I was like, well, I'm 40. I don't know how easy that will be. And so I kind of put that out there. In my mind, really, I thought he was sterile because he was like 47 and he didn't have any kids. And I had never, it's very rare to meet men who don't have kids at that age unless they're sterile. So I was like, this dude's sterile. But anyway, because I was like, well, I already had a kid. I know I could have kids. But we kind of talked about it. So that definitely was something that was in the back of my mind. Like I would hate to, kind of be with someone and they wanted kids and we couldn't have kids. I don't know. We've never really talked about that, but what was your interpretation or impression about that discussion and kids at that age? Me being 40.
I don't remember it specifically. It didn't make a huge impact. I mean, I knew that going in, so it wasn't like
You
it
know
was.
what he said? I want to tell you what he actually said. So I remember you saying one time. You were like, if if my main focus was to have kids, no offense, I wouldn't be with someone your age. something
Yeah,
to
that's probably what I said.
something to the effect. It sounds about right.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you were trying to offend me or not, but because okay, as you can tell, Daryl's just kind of like just straight no chaser. He kind of gives it to you.
But
But yeah, so that was kind of interesting. But I was still like, I have always thought very highly of myself. So I was like, well, I'm sure I can have kids. Again, I thought he was sterile. Um, Fast forward, I wasn't pressing the issue of marriage at that time because again, I had been in another relationship. I was like, in my mind, I was like, okay, well, maybe a year from now, if we're still dating, then we can talk about getting married and marriage and all that if it looks promising. About 6 months into our relationship, though, and everything was good. And I have to say, from the beginning, when we became official, I introduced Darryl officially to my daughter, and they got along like instantly. Like I could not have asked for a better connection between someone I was dating and my daughter. Like it's just been phenomenal. Like they are like this now. They are super 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 cool, super tight. Um, I think I got along from the beginning, but about 6 months in, I was kind of like having doubts about their like just certain things, and I was kind of like questioning, like, and I think one of the things that I did was, which a lot of women do, because I had been in another relationship for so long. Everyone always says everyone has their own issues, and that's true. I think I had gotten so used to the other issues, I was like, I knew how to deal with those other issues in my prior relationship. Like Darryl had some things that I just wasn't used to. Like he had some great qualities, but he had some things that I just wasn't used to either. And I think I really started doubting, like, should I, go ahead and figure out how to deal with his issues? I feel like I've been dealing with issues for so long, or just go back to the old issues. And we had like probably like a week where I just kind of was like, I distanced myself. He knew it. He felt it, but we ended up talking about it. We actually ended up going out to lunch. Um, and talking about it. Do you remember that week, or do you want to say anything about that?
yeah, I remember that week. Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, yeah.
Is that all you want to say?
No, no, that ain't all I want to say. No, no,
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. No, I remember that week. It was well in my head. It was okay. This is the part where she doesn't call me back again. Okay, so this goes into relationships too. Okay, that was my processing of it. So, and then at the end of that, we ended up going to what was it? Where did we go? TGI Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went to TGI Friday and pretty much broke up. So I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did actually break up. And I remember when we left that restaurant, immediately when I got in my car, like my heart just like sank. And I was like, what the heck did I do? Because, Darryl, to me, I've always told people, Darryl is a good guy. I mean, no one's perfect, but he's a good person, should I say. He wasn't just like a good guy, like he was a good person. And that's what I really loved about him and was attracted to. And he's, really smart. Everyone knows him. He's really smart. He's intelligent. He can kind of, battle. We can have a battle of the wits, which I love. And we have a great time together. But yeah, I immediately in my heart, and I totally like regretted it. And there was a couple of people around me who I told about that, and they were kind of like, you sure? He seems like a really good guy. Da 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 da. So, I think that night I ended up calling you back or calling you, saying, because when we were at lunch, I was like, well, we can be cool. And you didn't interpret me saying we could be cool or be friends as that.
No,
What did you interpret it as?
no, I interpreted we can be cool as okay. I'm knocking him down. Let me put a pillow under him so it doesn't seem too bad. But I'm calling this fool again. It's it's Tamika's a good person. She's not trying to. I don't think she was attempting to hurt me or to take vengeance on me or anything. I think she was. I interpreted it as okay. We're not going to be together, but I'm going to try to soften the blow so that it doesn't seem like because I'm not trying to be mean, but we're not together anymore. That was what I thought.
Mm-hmm. And then when I called you that night, what did you think?
I thought that was quick. Like it had been like a couple hours. It was, I don't know. Yeah, it had been like 4 or 5 hours, I guess. Something like that. I thought you may call again. I thought you may not call again.
Mm-hmm.
But my assumption was, okay, well, this is over. I guess, I don't know. Her computer crashed or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So I totally, again, I regretted that decision the moment that it happened. And I called and he was like super cool. We just kind of chatted and, all that. And then I don't know if, I guess we officially got back together, like shortly after that. So the next week, and this was like the turning point of my life. The next week, I just, again, I was kind of thinking about the reasons why I had broken up with you, the reservations that I was having. I saw someone put to my mind sharing some of those issues, which I will in another episode because we can't get all this in like right now. But thanks for the question. We'll get to it. So the next week, I remember it was a Sunday evening, and I was heading out to the Dominican with two of my cousins, like the next day or 2 days later. And I was contemplating, I just had like all these mixed feelings, and I remember going to the bathroom, and I just kind of like just broke down, like crying like a baby. And I realized at that point I had never actually mourned my previous relationship. Now, mind you, even though the relationship was not the best of relationships, I still invested like 10 years of my life. And when I left that relationship, I was like, peace. I'm out. I'm done. I'm not crying. Like, I'm a G. Like, I'm done. I'm over. I'll just get over it. And I really never did process the relation. Like, I never shed a tear. And I probably should have. I mean, it's someone that was, who was in my life, who no longer was. So I remember that happening, like mourning that. But then at the same time, I'll never forget. I was just like, I asked God, I was praying, and I was like, God, Lord, just please open my heart to Darryl and show me how to be the wife and prepare me to be the wife that he needs me to be. And I was just like overcome, like with this overwhelming sense of peace, like I had never experienced in my life. Like I knew at that moment that I was in love with this man, or I loved him and wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. Now, what's crazy thing was, because again, I was leaving like the next day or 2 days later. I happened to be leaving, but I don't know. Do you remember like anything changing in me in our interactions after that or around that period of time?
Not specifically. I don't remember. Nothing stood out on my side.
Okay. I mean, we had a conversation about it before, like years ago. You were like, you kind of noticed I was a lot closer and more affectionate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because I was just like, I was being held back apparently. And I remember like when I went out the country, we went out the country. Darryl didn't go with us, but I remember being there, and I was just like, I was like so cool. I was like so at peace. Normally, like in the past when I went on vacations, I'd be like looking like to see like what guys are around, what dudes are around. Like it was like none of that at all. I was just like, I found this dude. He's a really good guy, and I'm gonna give it my all and give him my all from this day forward. And that was like pretty much it. 4 or 5 months later, we were married. 6 months after that, or later on that year, we had our first son together. and I was 41 when I got married. Daryl was 48, 47, 48, 47, 48, 48,
47.
47, 47 when we got married. You're 48 when we had our first son.
Yeah.
So yes, I walked down the aisle again. No regrets, no hesitation, or anything like that at 41. And again, he was 47, soon to be 48. Um, and then 2 years later, less than 2 years later, we had another son. So
Mhm.
here we are, 4 years from the day that we spent our first Valentine's Day together. We have a completely and totally different life, an amazing life, an amazing family. And I don't regret anything. I don't even regret everything that I went through beforehand, because if I didn't go through like the things that I went through in my previous relationship or relationships or just dating other people, like I would not have been able to really appreciate Darryl, for the person and the man that he is. Um, so I don't know if you want to go ahead and tell everyone how wonderful that I am and how glad, how glad you are that you married me, and all that good stuff. But you know, well, let me say this. What was your rationale? Like, we went from dating to married like pretty soon. Like, how were you able to, because I know you think, like, you process a lot. Like, what was the process and what did you think, like, to make you go forward with like saying yes, let's get married?
Well, I had thought about the concept of marriage, and I had always thought, okay, I don't know that I necessarily know exactly what the type of woman is that I would be able to marry. I don't know that I could do that without having an example in front of me. I mean, it's not like a toaster. Like, I want something that has 75 watts of power, doesn't work like that with people. But I did know that I would have to know them for a while, and I wasn't going to be able to jump into, like, oh, I've known you for 6 months and we're going to get married. I knew you for 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty much gone like 5, 10 years ago. Like, from that was one of my things that I'd noticed when you watch some of these reality shows or whatever, and then somebody knows somebody for 2 months and they get married or whatever. And I was like, I'd never do that, ever, ever.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one thing that was like, and I would always think, okay, even if she's gorgeous like you are, and she's extremely intelligent like you are, and she has all these things going on, you really have to get to know them, across time, because anybody can keep up a facade for short amounts of time, but when it starts to go longer, cracks start showing, and pretty soon you get the whole real person as opposed to the facade that they put up initially. And so I had known you for a while, and I'm thinking, well, if she's putting up a facade, she's like a world class, like she needs an Oscar, an Emmy, and a Grammy combined, because no one could be keeping up a facade for that long, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably the biggest hurdle for anyone. And it's one that's not, like, I thought it through when I wasn't with someone. That I was thinking, well, I need to put this in my head so that once I am with somebody, you start to have feelings for them, and you kind of get biased, and it's hard to think through things. And I'm thinking, okay, I thought about this when I wasn't with anybody, so this is a legitimate concern. But that concern wasn't really there with you because of the amount of time we had. So then I would go through the times we did meet, and it was one thing that was big for me is that we'd be able to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't want to be like, okay, well, yeah, I have somebody, and yeah, she's gorgeous, but she can't read. I didn't want that. I didn't want that. I wanted somebody that I would be able to talk to, and that we had something in common that we would be able to talk about, something we'd be able to talk about. And that was, you were always like that. And so when I finally did fall for you, I was like, okay, well, I had fallen for women before. And I have stopped at some point falling for them. At some point, it wouldn't be the same as it was because you start seeing, you get close to somebody, you start seeing more and more things, and it's like, oh, well, there's this thing that I can't deal with. There's that thing I can't deal with. I told you my deal breakers. I have a couple of deal breakers.
What are your deal breakers?
Now, I don't remember them off the top of my head because you don't have them.
That's
So I
right.
don't
That's
think
a good
about
answer.
them. You don't have my deal breakers. I remember I actually wrote out stuff at one point with the women I was dating. You were the only one that didn't actually have a direct deal breaker. Like everybody had something, and you were. I remember looking at it and thought, "Oh, that's interesting," and just went on. This was like 2006 or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting, but at any rate, one of my deal breakers. I'd have to think about it.
That's okay. But yeah, so again, it's just like here we are, 4 years later, and a lot has happened. We've gone through a lot in the last 4 years, or even the last 3 years. But the one thing I always want to communicate to people is like love and relationships, they're not like a lot of times about it happening, meeting someone and just happening like right then and there. Like sometimes you just have to go through things, and sometimes you have to look back at the people that maybe are not someone who stood out initially, but the people who are just like good people, and go and revisit that. Like that's what counts at the end of the day. And again, Darryl, again, he's a solid guy. Like he's very, very consistent. And he's, like I said, a good person. So this is basically the end of our first episode. So thank you guys for joining me. I do see that comment in there. Have to give Darryl credit. He takes care of his parents. The man who takes care of his parents will take care of you. I'm not sure who wrote that, but that is absolutely true. I think that's one of the things we both had in common. We both and I'll say this really quick. What I think is really, really important is like your values when you get together with someone have to be similar. And we had similar values, I think, because we grew up in similar households. Like we both grew up with both of our parents in the household. We both were kind of like middle class. And so like we didn't necessarily have insecurities that dealt with that, or a parent not being there. So that has always made, and I've noticed that over the years, I always have gotten along a lot better with someone who's been in a similar situation as far as the way that I was raised. And it definitely was the case here. We were both extremely close to our parents. So I think, that is something to take into consideration. Again, just having similar value systems when you're looking for a potential partner or mate. But again, thank you guys for tuning in. We will be recording live every Sunday sessions in the Successful and Single to Marvelous and Married Facebook group. It is a private group. And we will be having guests who also have gotten married or found love after the age of 40 and sharing those experiences, letting you know it is not too late. I also have the Pregnancy After 40 group, which now has over 6,000 members. We have women in there who are having babies 47, 48 years old. So I don't want anyone to think, okay, I'm not married now at 40, 41, 42. It is definitely totally possible to have children. And a lot of these women are getting pregnant and having babies naturally. Some of them do it with assistance, some not. So don't let that be a reason to kind of settle and move or rush a situation. So we will definitely be exploring the gamut of things in relationships, miscommunications, issues, and trying to improve those relationships in order to get to your happily ever after 40 as well. So thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next Sunday. Thanks, guys.